All right, let's begin with Rufftone. You as an ambassador, you said you're an ambassador to South Korea, ambassador of goodwill?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. What does it really entail, and how has it changed you as a person and your branding?
Thank you, Dibal. What has changed since I became the goodwill ambassador to the Republic of South Korea is my life has literally changed. My perception of the world has literally changed. For instance, when I went to South Korea, they took me to where they manufacture the Samsung phones, they took me to where they manufacture the Hyundai motors, and they took me through some of the universities, and I could see the culture there. I could see the responsibility. For instance, when I was there, I was surprised. There's a commercial on TV telling people, kindly people sleep. It is time for you to sleep. Yeah. Where I'm serious. And one of the challenges they have over there is that old men don't die. Are you getting it? And when I come to Kenya, we're actually being encouraged to wake up. So once you network, once you become ready to incorporate other people's culture and beliefs, you become a better person. And that's the reason as to why, because of being a goodwill ambassador, I started with becoming a musician, and then from there I became a goodwill ambassador. I'm finding myself attracting other ambassadors' positions. For instance, as I said, the Nairobi County government asked me to become their brand ambassador so that I can talk about the ills of alcohol consumption. So I'm the ambassador for the Rethink Your Drinking campaign and many other areas. So what am I saying? Enough of Rufftone. Where are you seated at home? Who are you? Are you a teacher? Are you a mechanic? Are you a chef? So you need to stand out from the rest, and by researching, and I can't sum it up better than what we've just heard. I'll be watering his message, but you have to be unbelievable. You have to satisfy the basic. You have to be intentional. So because we are many, I'll pass it on to Mogamba.
you have to smell the cab, guy. When you get the cab, I'm not entering your cab. Remember?
Yes.
When the bell rings, you're like, it's unbelievable, the bell has rung.
Yes.
Anyway, I mean, I can't say it any more than you guys have said.
Yes.
There's a point he put across, and he said, there's what that made me think. There's what I believe I can do best, and there's what people actually expect best of me. So where is the midpoint? Where do I stand both so that both I and they are happy? So the brand makes sense. I could go there, like, for example, when I began singing, my singing was R&B, Kina Sweet Ndwale and all that. I remember when we started. Then at a point when I decided to do like a simple song like Kevevel, I realized, hey, there's more impact in this other direction. And so that necessitated me to change my perspective of how I approach the music. I still do R&B, but there's what now the larger crowd have realized this brand is. So at times you have to be, like you said, relevant. R&B worked then. Now you move with the times and change, because there's a message I want to deliver, but I need to deliver it through the brand so that it makes sense to the world out there. That's how I'd sum it.
Right. Jemedari also raised some good points on research, react and respond. Especially when it comes to music in this country, do you think our artists, they do a lot of research, right? Because also you raise the issue of content. You find your content, but you can see some of the content that we have, especially with our local artists, sometimes it's really wanting. You can see them getting some raps on social media regarding their content as well. Jemedari.
I think as far as branding is concerned, and Derek zeroed in on social media, my biggest issue with Kenyan artists in general, social media is supposed to mimic life. But when you go to a typical Kenyan artist's page, you feel like you're walking through town and you're being followed by a hawker. You tell this guy good morning, and his response is, here's a link to my new song. Today we're talking about corruption. Response is, here's a link to my new song. And you go to this guy's timeline and all you see is links. New video, new video, new video, new audio, new audio. You tend to think there's nothing this guy has to say. There's nothing else he has to tell me apart from telling me to watch his content. So the question then becomes, how do you use this particular platform to push your message? Because you can push your message without necessarily pushing it down people's throats. So how do you morph? How do you morph? And Mbuvi said it correctly. You have to sort of see what works and run with that. if today everybody is using a meme, then find how that meme is going to fit into your message and into your brand.
So the market will dictate your brand. For you
At
to
some-
fit in.
at some-
So
at some-
can you
at
really
some
change
point-
because the market is dictating? If
Yeah,
you're an
you
R&B
can.
You
artist,
can.
You can.
You
You
can't,
can.
okay,
You can.
can't really stick to your value because it's dictating how you should change and adopt. To the
Let me
particular
just
market
say
niche.
something. We also, I remember when I started my career, I used to come here at Nation Media, and the only product that Nation had was by then it was the newspaper, radio, and television. But as we actually entered the digital era, we can see now we have Nation Online. You can actually watch it online. So Nation Media Group changed with the times so as to reach a better and greater audience. And I remember when I used to go for my shows abroad, newspapers actually had to be literally being shipped into America for Kenyans to read it in America. But right now it's just a click away. So you have to be, as Mbuvi has said and everyone has said, even Derek, you have to adapt to the times. And another thing maybe I need to overemphasize, you have to be genuine with your people. The audience has to feel like your family. Just like what Jemedari has said, it's not about, you know what, guess what, good morning, it's raining outside, but I have a hot song that will, so this is the link. No. You have to resonate with people. If it's about anger right now and there's something to do with insecurity, you have also to take a stand, just as Jemedari had said, and let it be that, let even your audience ask you, where is your new song? What are you up to? And that way, you'll not be shoving that song down their throat. They'll be actually saying, you are us. Please, we want to also care about you now that you care about us so much. Yeah.
All right, Derek, satisfying the basics. What would be the basics when it comes to branding?
Okay, so the basics for branding, I think first of all is one of the things that I mentioned, making sure that the internet, that social media really speaks for you. Everybody's on some social media platform. Just the basic for me is making sure that there is a profile out there that speaks responsibly towards what your brand is. You know, Debal, we live in a world where I think, to be honest with you, nobody owes you anything. By the way, there are no prizes for showing up to work and doing what you're supposed to do between 8 and 5. Okay, just doing the basic. So these gentlemen are talking about the entertainment industry and about taking it to the next level. We live in an age where you need to go beyond that basic. If you want to succeed in this hyper-competitive world, it is about being exceptional. Showing up to work and working from 8 to 5 and expecting yourself to get promoted or to rise through the ranks, those days are gone. You have got to bring something else to the table. If you're in the entertainment industry like these gentlemen, you've got to bring something that's going to be exceptional, something that's going to be different, something that's going to make you stand out. So I know your question was, what is the basic? I'm saying go beyond the basic. Okay? Look at your brand in totality. And of course, when I talk about branding, I talk about things to do with the visual representation of that, but also internally. How are you relating to other people? What is your emotional intelligence? These days, the most fascinating brand wins. Let me just finish by encapsulating it this way. There are 10 commandments in the Bible, right?
Yes.
I'm sure we're familiar with them. Yes. I have an 11th commandment. Maybe according to the Bible of Brother Derek. The 11th commandment is that your brand cannot be boring. It is a sin to be boring. Thou shalt not be boring. Stand out.
Right, stand out. So, what is boring? Boring is relative, is it?
No, boring is fading into the background. Boring is not being recognized. Boring is showing up to work 8 to 5. Nobody knows who you are. You don't exist. You talk to the same people. You don't go out there and network. You don't sell yourself on social media. You don't do what you have to do to be noticed. That is what I call boring.
All right, but
it's introducing yourself and somebody forgets you 5 minutes later. They meet you again and say, have we met? I just introduced myself 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Because you've got nothing that stands out.
But there is this illusion that once you churn out your content, your images on social media, then you're actually increasing your brand value. But it goes much deeper than that if you made real deeper, because it has to take social responsibility as well. You also knowing this is an experiential journey, not just churning out your stuff on social media and telling people, hey, tweet my name, tweet my stuff, so that now I can increase my brand value. Social media does play that, yes. But if we are to peel back the layers and take it a rung deeper, what else will we add to make also our brand value shine?
Okay, I mean, part of it is obviously, I think what you're referring to is managing that brand online, managing your social media content. And you have to become strategic. You have to become the CEO of your personal brand. You're not just indiscriminately putting out pictures of yourself in various suggestive poses because you want to be noticed on social media.
Yes.
There is something, well, even though that somebody might look and say that's a strategic way of doing it, but you want to become strategic in terms of how you want to progress in whatever career it is, whether it's in entertainment, whether it's in politics, whether it's an entrepreneur, so that you're strategically putting things out there or making yourself seen. I'll use myself as an example. When I started doing this business about 5 or 6 years, I strategically used, for example, the media, certain appearances, to make me stand out and people recognize that this is a gentleman whose forte is in the area of whether it's personal branding or image or some of the areas that I talk about, or public speaking and things like that. So you've got to be smart with exposing yourself, and especially exposing yourself on social media. That story I gave at the beginning, where you Google yourself and you're not responsible for your LinkedIn profile, you're not responsible for what you're putting out on Twitter, can be damaging on the flip side.
All right. So brand custody. We have people also, and we know, not really necessarily people, but brands also that have been recalled sometimes because either maybe they were harming people. We all know about the story of Samsung. Yeah. If we may just use it here because it is in the public domain, not really hurting the brand itself, and what was happening with the batteries as well. If we have such a recall and the people maybe also have questions about the brand itself, how then do we make sure that we return to the market? What will be the strategies in terms of returning to the market and, of course, assuring your loyal customers that, yes, this brand has been hurt, but we are back with more remedial measures that we've taken to make sure that the safety of our customers also is looked into?
For me, again, once I started talking about branding, I said you have to be very intentional. One of the ways of winning your clientele and standing out from the rest is, as I said, you have to show care. I've heard of many incidents whereby you find there's an airline company and we know you pay, let's say, this amount of dollars from here to Dubai, but you find they intentionally start a unit or seats for the disabled. Are you getting it? Some introduce even medical doctors onto that flight so that they stand out from the rest. What does that mean? If I come from a church, for instance, and I'm a pastor, and I know I have 10 disabled people and they're going for a conference in India, I will automatically recommend them to this airline. Why? Because they care about the people living with disability. And two, the question that you've asked about Samsung. For me, I normally take some challenges. The way they come, you flip them and you take it back onto the field. I'll use a very simple example. There were some planes that were being manufactured and they were not performing during the World War. A certain country was given, and what did they do? It was being given to them as a reject from this other mother country. But what did they do? They said, let's just put side mirrors, because they had hips, so the pilots could not see the planes attacking them from behind. So what did they do? They elongated the side mirrors, and the planes worked for the disadvantage to their advantage. So what am I saying here? If Samsung came out and said, for instance, we made a mistake, you accept and you say, you give people assurance, this is why we've done this. And I've heard this about many other vehicles which were being recalled because they had fault in their brakes. And you know what? It increased the sales, whereby you have a car company churning out a new model, and then after 6 months they say, we are recalling these vehicles. And the clientele go like, wow, they could have kept quiet about it, but they recall because they care about us. So also that's a very good lesson in branding. Your disadvantage, you could actually turn it for your advantage.
Okay, brand recovery. I wonder which planes are this that have hips also on the outside mirrors.
Talk to me.
I think as an addendum to what he said, sometimes your brand might harm some people. It's normal. You might go out there and you might say something that rubs someone the wrong way, or you might produce something, or you might put out a product that harms someone. Once this person brings out a complaint, the first thing you should do, as I said it somewhere in my point, it's react and respond. Reach out, talk to these people, let them share their problems, and then figure out how exactly you can come in. It costs nothing for you to convert your biggest hater to your biggest brand ambassador. It costs nothing.
At times even it's also, you already probably know what you need to do.
Yeah.
But take it out there, like you're saying, and ask them, what do you think we should do?
Exactly.
It feels, people feel like, we've actually
we
owned
own,
this process. So tumesaidia kidogo.
Exactly.
Recall, own up, and then before you come up with anything, then make sure your customer service is awesome. Speak to guys and tell them, hey, whatever, hey, but you know what, we have this coming out.
Basically, be human.
Be human.
Be human.
Everyone
It's a
identifies.
human side.
I've realized that times there's an artist who's being backlashed. And at times what messes us up is we don't own up. You just come up and say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. There's a time I was abroad and I took a selfie. I meant to make fun of myself. So I took a selfie with somebody who's bigger than me. And I said, look at people and the way they say I'm big, what do you mean? So guys, there's something I'd not looked at. I'm also enjoying the other guy. I'm making fun of the other guy too. I had not realized. So guys wrote to me and said, hey, Mbuvi, and you're a Christian. How can you write stuff like that? What's going on with you? Now, there are two ways I can take it. I can say, what are you telling me? Or you take it down and write in their inbox, I'm really sorry. I actually hadn't seen it this way. I was making fun of myself. But I'd actually not seen that perspective. Somebody writes back and tells you, I understand. We are all humans, we make mistakes. You've won over that person because they realize the genuineness of your heart.
All right, we want just to hear from our callers as well who are hanging on the line. We have Manali calling from Bungoma. Good morning, Manali.
Good morning.
Morning to you. Have a contribution, a question for our panelists this morning?
Yeah, that is a very enlightening panel.
Yes.
And particularly, I am buying what Mr. Derek is saying, that you have to exceed, exceed and exceed. And here, there's something the panelists have not mentioned, that you can negatively brand yourself. You can have a negative brand that is not attractive. So in being attractive, it means then that you'll have to give more than what the others expect, so that that particular individual will be always in demand because he's giving more, giving the same, maybe same product or same service, but gives it exceedingly beyond and more than the others. And kindly allow me to ask Mr. Rufftone and Mbuvi, you are Christian ministers through songs. Do you have a mentor or a supervisor? By that I mean, do you have a pastor or a spiritual person above you? Because I understand that music is very, very delicate and it sometimes might ruin you, because you are an individual, you are giving to the community, and you may be demanded to give more than, or some of your fans may be not Christians and they want you to give some material which is not Christian, not godly.
Thank you.
How are you supervised, or how do you supervise yourself? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. We have another caller hanging on the line. Robert, calling from Nairobi. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning. Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. You have a question or a contribution?
Now, my question, or rather my comment would be
Yes.
about leadership. When you think of leadership, I think one of the area where we fail in our entertainment industry is that we work, or rather they work alone. The producer is not part of he's here to produce your music and stuff, but do you even have writers, or do you have people who actually come and work with you, and so that you can say that you are a leader? Another thing on branding is that I think where we might be failing in branding is you don't have someone who mentors even in branding. You just go and brand yourself whichever way, and then you just appear. You just show up, and whatever is current is what you do. That makes you fail as branding, because you don't hauna msimamo. You just do whatever is current, and that's how you are. And eventually you will not transcend our borders, because you just stay here. You just do today's election, so you do songs on elections, or do this because of this. But how do you survive after that as a brand? Thanks.
Good question. And of course, I will pose this to our panelists to just respond to them. Negative branding, as raised by Manani from Bungoma as well. And the issue of mentors, and I think also that one, Robert also is alluding to that as well. Do you have spiritual mentors for them that they're singing gospel, or for them that are also they're on the other side as well? Do you have mentors in the first place? But the question of everything, you being all things rolled into one. You're the producer, you're the writer, you're the publisher, you know, you're your own manager. How does that really work out also for your brand, right? Let's hear from Derek, then we'll come to you. Yes.
I'll take the negative branding.
Yes.
And these gentlemen were talking about it, and part of that is crisis management. Crisis management, companies do that. We mentioned Samsung. Obviously, there's so many companies that have gone through problems with their product or their service.
Yeah.
But in terms of your brand, and especially how it's related to managing your brand, can I tell you this? Everything is your fault. It is your fault. Now, what do I mean by that? You can either be empowered by that statement, or you can be ruined by that statement. In other words, I come back to this. The world is not fair. Nobody owes you anything. It is your job to make sure that you are seen, heard, and remembered for the right reasons. And by the way, if you react to every single internet troll who's going to say things about you, that is you being ruined by the fact that it is your fault. The thing is, do what you are supposed to do, do it better than everybody else, and believe me, the fruits of your labor will be seen. That, to me, is about managing your brand. It's about taking control, and rather than blaming others, rather than picking fights with other people, rather than holding on to grudges, you simply stay in your lane and do the best that you can do for your brand. I think that's a really powerful thing. By saying, by the way, it's my fault. What can I do better? What can I do to be exceptional? What can I do to stand out? That's what I have to say about certainly managing your brand or negative perceptions of your particular brand.
All right, so if you're really responding to trolls on Twitter, you're trolling, of course, the internet, and you're seeing negative remarks about you, and of course you want to react, we can also extrapolate that and see maybe if we can take it practically on what has been happening, this part between the president and Joho, and of course him, the way he's been personified right now, that anger in chief, he's the anger in chief, you know, as a head of state. How does that really hurt also the brand of the presidency as well, and the office of the presidency?
Yeah, well, that's image management. They call it in politics, the word is optics. What are the optics? You seem to be somebody who's not in control of the emotions. That's why I talked about emotional intelligence, your EQ, handling situations like that. You're in a rough and tumble world of politics. People are going to say things. You know, people like Trump have set the bar so low down that these days anything goes. But is your brand the kind of brand that is going to be seen to be reacting in a negative way to somebody saying things about you, or are you going to be the bigger person and simply rise above that? That is very telling in terms of managing someone's image. And that's why I said it's your fault. It's not your fault that you were called that name. It is your fault by how you respond to that name calling.
All right, let's hear from Rufftone.
About the negative branding.
Yeah, negative branding, of course. Okay, I don't want to ask this question. I wanted to digress, but
You're going somewhere.
We go. I was going somewhere.
I can speak. So the thing is this. I know how Dibalo was going. You also know. Derek will explain. About negative branding, I like what Derek has said. It's your fault. This is yet to be confirmed, but I had, we all remember when we were young, we used to have a company called Kodak, and tulikuwa tunakumbuka mtu wa picha anakuja every Sunday to take photos. And there's somebody who actually suggested that they should actually incorporate all these things that are on our smartphones into those cameras, and somehow somebody somewhere refused to go digital. And as you can see, with all humility, they are not where they were before. If I was to tell my child about Kodak, they'll ask me, what is that all about? So that is something that Derek said about negative branding. Another thing I was also about to mention was there's a second point. There's a second point. Which one was it? I'll remember. But again, it's about how you, as Jemedari said, how do you react to it? As Mbuvi said, how do you react to it? It is your fault, but are you willing to own up and say, this is the mistake and this is how we'll move forward? So I say to every company, you need to come and own up your mistakes. It will be a turbulent season for a while, but you'll go back. If you're the better person, you'll take your crowd back to where they were initially.
Right. Positioning is key, of course, when it comes to branding. And he mentioned or asked that particular question of mentors. You've not really responded to that, but you being everything rolled into one as a brand, does that really harm? Does it also add value to your branding, Jemedari?
There are very few cases where it adds value, and there are some cases where it harms the brand. It all comes out to exactly what's the positioning. What's the positioning? I mean, there's some people out there who are, I mean, if I'm to speak about artists, there are people who thrive on being a triple threat. He's a singer, songwriter, producer. They do all these things and they do them perfectly.
Babyface.
We have the Babyface, we have R. Kelly. There's outliers, and we let them because they have found a way to push all these skills and put them together. But there's some artists who are very good artists, but not so very good producers.
And not so good songwriters as well.
And not so good songwriters. The thing that we need to learn, especially in the arts industry, is learn how to delegate. That's something artists don't really. The Kenyan entertainment industry has not learnt about the power of delegation. Give this songwriter a platform, and you could be the biggest artist ever, because they know the right words to use.
So,
you might have the right voice.
Maybe just to emphasize on what he did, there's a practical example where we have a lady called Mercy Masika, and she's been there for over 10 years.
Yeah.
But people knew her immediately. There's a song that Mr. V wrote for her.
Exactly.
And now it has propelled her to even greater levels. Continue. Sorry.
Exactly. So I think we should learn how to delegate. First of all, as a brand and as a person, you have to realize that ego is a bad thing. And once you learn how to put aside the ego and the pride, you'll realize that at whatever you're doing, and this is fact, there is someone out there doing what you're doing better than you. You have to either learn or hate. That's a personal choice.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of adding something there. And I think tumeisema lakini tumeienda around hivi. And it's part and parcel of what you're saying. For you to be the best artist or the best brand out there doesn't mean you're the best in everything. It's a conglomeration of a lot of things. It's part and parcel of what he's saying. Then maybe I'll get the best social media person for me, the best advisor in how I should dress, the best songwriter, the best producer. So at the end of the day, I as Mbuvi, I'm actually a representative of all those facets. So that brings in is even mentorship, like somebody was asking about mentorship. Yes, I will have a spiritual mentor. I will also have somebody else I can bounce my thoughts to. So these guys, in their particular individual elements, they're better than me, actually. But now they combine all those factors. When we come out and I unleash that song, I am better. If in my capacity, even if I do 300, which is impossible, 300% of my abilities, I can only go so far. But if I did 20% of another 10 guys who are helping my brand go further, I'm in a richer place. I'm in a much better place. I can have wordings for a song. I can know what I want to say, but I don't know how to put it right, like you're saying. Then I'll give it to somebody. It's still my song, but there's somebody else who has a lyrical prowess or bring out my message better. I can confuse, I might say something and confuse with what I'm going to say.
And Dibal, maybe the point that I'd forgotten, the importance of branding also, you have to have the power to believe in your brand. Case in scenario, you remember Walt Disney, when he frontiered the Mickey Mouse cartoon, it was, abolished, in fact. They said, this one can't work. I think it was in Warner Company, if I'm not wrong. But he believed, and you can see even in Walt Disney, that is the #1 brand that they have. The same happened, I think, also to Apple. There's at some point when Steve Jobs wanted to partner with Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett didn't believe in Apple, but Steve Jobs kept on, and the world had to catch up with him. So if it's a good product, believe in it and don't be shaken. But you also have to be wise enough to know, is it believing because of ego, as he put it, or is it a good product in real sense? How do you know a good product is? Are the sales working? Are you being recalled? After this, will you call Derek again for another interview? That is how you will be measured. And lastly, it is time for Derek.
As we're ending up, Derek, still you'll add to your point as well. But I want you also to, excuse me, just maybe fly in the face of this notion that we normally hear from people, I'm having some flames here, that any publicity is good publicity. even if it's negative publicity, is good publicity, right? So regardless of what you're doing on social media, as long as you're trending, that's good. People know about you. You're making so much hoopla about yourself. Is that good?
Yeah, well, I think I alluded to that earlier. I said you have to be a bit strategic with what you put out there, especially in social media. I certainly don't believe that any publicity is good publicity. I want the right kind of publicity. You need to look at the headlines of today's papers. Is that positive publicity or is that negative publicity? So let's just put that to bed. It's a question about having things that speak towards how you want to be seen by your target market. There are no two ways about it. But just quickly on mentorship, and you know, I always tell people, seek mentorship from successful people. Do you know successful people are not necessarily talented? In fact, let me tell you something. Yeah. If you have to seek mentorship from somebody, the person who has had to work hard at becoming good at what they're doing is the person, to me, who is more successful than the person who is simply talented. Now, we're talking to these very successful gentlemen in the entertainment world. Talent alone doesn't get you to the top. In fact, a lot of times these talented people, because they think they're talented, don't work as hard. Yeah. But the person who has had to fight, who has had to live and die in the studio to become successful, that is the person that you sort of want to be able to get advice from. For me, let me tell you, aptitude over passion. In other words, somebody who has to work to become successful at what they're doing, to me, has a better perspective on a particular industry, whatever that industry is, than somebody who is talented alone.
Thank you. We have, Duke, still on mentorship, you're saying we don't have mentors nowadays as before. Everyone wants to do what she thinks is good. In a country where we're waking up to such headlines as what we saw today on the Daily Nation, how did you make millions? A probing question where you go to ask, right? And every day, we are lacking mentors in this country, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Right, let's hear from Jemedari, I think. Yes.
I don't agree. Anyway, answer.
Yes, we do. We lack mentors. I think what is happening in our country right now, especially with from politics coming down to a social aspect, we have a generation of people who are more self-centered. We have a generation that has been, and I'm speaking for millennials. Let me speak for any child who was born in the 80s, actually, after 1982 onwards. You have kids who've been literally whipped into a success system. You have to be successful at whatever cost. So you grow up thinking, I was told I have to be a doctor and I have to buy this car and I have to buy this house, and that's your only focus. You won't let anything take you away from buying that house or buying that car. And you don't want this guy to be as successful as you are, because your success then becomes par. You won't stand out. So you try as much as possible to stand out and keep everyone at a level that's slightly below you, because for you the goal has been success.
Thank you.
I just wanted
Briefly, as you're winding up, 30 seconds.
Yes. I want to refute that. I want to say mentors are there. We are the ones who are not going for mentors. At any point I've needed advice or direction and somebody to hold my hand and go with me, I've found mentors. They're there. We just don't look for them.
We don't look for them.
We don't go for them. Rufftone.
As Jemedari and Mbuvi has put it, do we have mentors? No. Why? Because we've killed them. We are in a generation where people think they know everything and they thrive on killing the king and, you know, taking his throne. That is the attitude that young people have, and I think we need to change from that. And we go to these purportedly old men with lots of wisdom. Personally, as there was asked, I have a mentor. I come from a church and a ministry and a pastor. So I'm mentored. And then now that we're on branding,
they are mentors.
Yes, they are there. It's just that people don't want to approach them.
Their whatever,
they think, wanasema teneo imepita. Okay, to finish.
30 seconds.
Yes, on branding. You can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Rufftone Iggy. On Instagram, follow Rufftone, and on Facebook, Rufftone. That is branding.
All right.
There is something called the passion myth. People think that you have to love something to be good at it. Actually, it is better to be good at something. Aptitude is greater than passion. If you're good at something and you work at it and become the best at it, even if it's not something that you initially love, you might become to love it. Pick what you know that you're good at and work on it. You don't necessarily have to love it, but that's the talent that you've been given.
Thank you very much. Hey, gentlemen, I think this has been a very informative discussion. Thank you very much for your contribution.